Yeah, let me just first say that I really believe that your hearts lie at the right place, and that I also would like to sympathize with you for what you feel about the Maoists and the tribals in those regions. I think it's a tragedy to say the least, but I do have certain criticisms of what you said today, of your analysis, and I would like you to address these three. And I'm not trying to start a controversy or a polemic here, so please don't get on me. First, I see in this discourse, I see a series of assumptions that have not been supplemented with good evidence or good explanation. And things like, Tata having good control of the media. I want the channels they control. I want to know the newspapers they control. I want to know how they do it. Because in my opinion, I think it sounds very romantic to, say that the bourgeois are working in concert, but actually identifying and explaining it is the hard bit, which I think we all deserve it as an audience. And things like that it's a corporate Hindu government for the Congress, whose one of the major vote banks are the Muslims. I mean, these are very astounding allegations, which I think need to be provided with good supplement. Calling it a corporate voice, I think it's not even registering the complexity which is generally evident in such cases. So that's my first criticism. Second criticism is, when you criticize what is happening in India today, I would also like you to attempt to give an alternative solution, an alternative framework as to what you would think India should be. I mean, the reason why we neoliberalized was because we were bankrupt. I don't think it was because of the Soviet Union collapsing. It was because we just didn't have any money. Our steel mills were running at a loss, and I think we all agree that...
Can you make it short, please?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my second criticism. My third is that I would also like you to, at the same time, register some of the benefits that free market has provided, not just to the middle class, but also, like I said, I'm not trying to start.
Take more than one question.
Let's just put them.
But also to the 600 million or the 700 million phone subscribers in India, and they're increasing at 20 million and that's just an example. 3 criticisms, that's it.
Yeah, could we just take a cashier question, so problem 3, or do you want 2
I
or
think
3
it's easier
questions?
one time, otherwise we get confused.
Are you okay? Okay.
You have
Fine.
it again.
If you look at the statistics of the economic turnover of the media, you find that more than 90% of its turnover comes from corporate advertising. Recently, for example, Outlook ran a story on how VSNL, which used to be a government company, was sold to the Tatas at the time of the BJP for less money than there was in the bank, almost, in that company. And, Tatas, the editor was telling me they withdrew something like 6 crores worth of advertising. If you look at how public hearings were held in Luhandigooda, where the Tata integrated steel plant was supposed to have its public hearings, it never happened in the local area. It happened, in Jagdalpur in the collector's office, and how the newspapers reported it the next day. A lot of it has to just do with control of advertising. And in fact, now in the Lokpal bill, some of us were saying that we need the media to disclose its sources of funding, because major corporations own TV channels. I mean, you should know that from Murdoch, from Italy, from whatever. I mean, one is not saying anything new here. It's not some radical new analysis of how the modern corporate media works. The second question about, what was it about? No, that was the third. The corporate Hindu government. If you read, even if you read the essay and the footnotes in Walking with the Comrade, you see that, for example, the chief minister, Chhattisgarh is a BJP state, but the Salva Judum was run by Mahesh Karma, who is a congressman. And if you see who was funding the camps of the Salva Judum, and these are government reports, you see which corporations were funding them. And the reason I call it India a Hindu state is because if you look at the history of how the Indian army has fought its own people since the moment India became an independent country. It has waged war in Nagaland, in Manipur, in Mizoram, in Kashmir, in Punjab, in Telangana, in Hyderabad, in Goa. You look at who are these people. They are either tribal people, Christians, Muslims, Adivasis, Dalits. And so these are you see an upper caste state at work. When in a state like in a situation like Gujarat or in 1993 in Bombay, the police actually cross over, and the people the Muslims in Gujarat were most terrified of the police. Humko police se bacha do, you know. So it's not we are not just people who are talking in the air. You know, if you take the trouble to read the research, there's lots of work being done on this. So it's not something that's going. Now, again, the question of alternatives. You can ask the question of alternatives in two ways. One way is a genuine way, and the other is a sort of aggressive way. And the genuine way would take into account the fact that today we are where we are because there have been a series of decisions taken about everything, whether it's about hybrid seeds, whether it's about big dams, whatever it's about. Every time there is a decision that has been taken, there has always been an alternative. There was an alternative even at the time of the Bhakra Dam. You know, there was an alternative to the Sardar Sarovar Dam. There was an alternative to every major way in which you chose to develop. And so when you have a system that is being created with a layer and like thousands of decisions, and you want me now to tell you an alternative in one sentence, it isn't possible. But I can tell you that the alternative to what is going on in Chhattisgarh today is what we've been saying again and again. Declare those MOUs. How can it be a secret? Why is it a secret between the government and the corporates? What you're selling this whole country down to various. If it's such a great idea, why don't you tell us what it is? Why don't you put it on the table? Why don't you declare the MOUs? Why don't you inform people what's about to happen to them and what your plans are for them? You know, if you look at what is happening in Chhattisgarh, within that tribal society, you've never had one hospital, one clinic, one school for so long. And now suddenly you're calling them terrorists and saying you have to leave your land because we can develop India. What sort of dialogue is that, you know? You start the Sardar Sarovar project with a wonderful resettlement policy, which says everybody will have land for land, every village will be resettled as a village. Then you have the first few villages where one village is resettled in 192 different places. Everyone has a tin shed, which in any case gets flooded in the monsoon. And the rest of it you just forget about, and after 10 years you say, no, there's no land. Just get out of here. You know, so there is a sort of structural violence that's taking place. And we are not people who, I mean, what's in it for any of us? Why would we be sitting here and saying these things? I mean, unless we're sort of got a mental problem or something, you know? We're just here to say that there is something so desperately wrong. And it's easier to see. It might be far more violent in China, but it's easier to see how a totalitarian state functions. It's far more difficult to see it when you have this smoke screen of democracy, because India is a democracy, but it's a democracy for a few people. You know, I keep saying, I say, you tell me one democratic institution, or tell me one institution that an ordinary villager in India can go to if he or she has been wronged. There is no court of appeal. There is no court of appeal. So you.
No, can we? You had your say. There are a lot of people waiting here.
it's a system where you have these institutions, and you have a constitution which even has some enlightened clauses in it, but none of them are implemented. You know, so it's a much more intellectually complicated way to see through something. That's the problem here.